Is that supposed to be a snake? Or did a kid get hold of a marker while you were passed out drunk? The voice cut through the low hum of the computer banks inside the Navy control room. It was a clean blue-lit room, the main center of the base filled with millions of dollars of gear and men who thought they were the smartest people on Earth. Old Man Jack did not look up. He kept his eyes on the floor cleaner, his hands steady on the shaking handle, guiding the machine in a slow, steady arc over the floor. At 82 years old, Jack had learned that quiet was often the best answer one could give. But today, quiet seemed only to make the man standing behind him madder. "Hey, I am talking to you, old guy. I asked about that ink." Lieutenant Dan stepped into Jack's side vision. Dan was young for his rank, a man who wore his uniform with the clean crispness of someone who had spent his whole job in air-conditioned rooms fighting wars on screens. He held a foam cup of coffee in one hand and pointed a neat finger at Jack's forearm with the other. Jack paused the machine. The sudden quiet of the motor seemed to suck the air out of the room. He slowly stood up straight, feeling the usual pop of back bones that had carried too much weight for too many years. He looked at his own arm. The mark in question was faded. The ink ran into the thin paper skin of his inner forearm. To eyes that did not know, it looked like a rough, silly mess. A black shape cut by a twisty lightning line with three small, uneven dots under it. It was ugly. It was rough. It looked like jail work. "It is just a mark, sir," Jack said, his voice rough but soft. He gripped the handle of the cleaner again, ready to move on. "Just a reminder." A reminder of what? Bad choices? Dan laughed, looking around at the two young helpers next to him. They chuckled too, though one of them, a young woman named Ensign Kim, looked away, her eyes fixing on the digital map on the main wall. "You know we have rules about how you look on the command deck," Dan went on, stepping closer. He blocked Jack's path. "Even for the cleaning staff, that thing is an eyesore. It looks like gang marks. You got a past you're not telling us about, Jack. Maybe time in jail." Jack looked up, meeting Dan's eyes. The lieutenant's face was smooth, not hurt by wind or worry. Jack's face was a map of deep lines and rough spots. "No jail, sir. Just work," Dan sneered, taking a sip of his coffee. "Right. Work. Well, cover it up. Roll down your sleeves. I do not want to see that junk while I am trying to move the ships." "It bugs me," Jack waited. The control room was kept at a cold 65 degrees to protect the computers, but the work of pushing the big cleaner kept him warm. Rolling down his sleeves would make the next hour of work too hot. "With all due respect, sir, the rule for contract cleaning lets rolled sleeves when using heavy machines. Safety rule to stop catching." Dan's eyes got small. The air in the room changed. It was one thing for the old cleaner to look bad. It was another for him to quote rules to a boss officer. The fun teasing stopped, replaced by cold office meanness. "Are you telling me safety rules?" Dan asked, his voice getting lower like the boss of this deck. "I am just doing my job, sir. Your job is to clean the floor, not argue close code with a lieutenant." Dan took a step forward, getting in Jack's space. The smell of fancy smell water came off him, clashing with the smell of floor shine and old sweat. "And right now, I am questioning your choices. In fact, I am questioning your pass. If you have gang marks, that is a safety risk. Who checked you?" "I have been working this base for 15 years, Jack said. He did not step back. He stood his ground, his feet wide apart, a stance he learned long ago and never forgot. Times change, rules change. Dan waved to the two young helpers. "Kim, check his badge. Check it on the watch list. I want to know if our friend Jack here is allowed in the main room or if someone in office fell asleep." Ensign Kim waited. "Sir, he's Mr. Jack. He cleans the comms room every Tuesday. He's never been a problem. I gave you a direct order, Ensign." Jack stood still as the young woman came to him. She looked sorry, her moves careful as she reached for the plastic card on Jack's shirt pocket. Jack didn't move. He stared straight ahead, looking at a blinking red light on a computer shelf across the room. He felt a strange calm, a usual cold feeling in his chest. It wasn't fear. He hadn't felt fear that mattered since 1968. It was a deep, tired letdown. The mark on his arm seemed to hurt a bit, a ghost feeling. For a second, the clean blue light of the control room went away. Jack wasn't standing on shiny floor. He was stuck deep in black mud. The air wasn't cooled. It was thick, wet, smelling of rot and gunpowder. He looked down at his arm, not the faded gray blur, but fresh, red skin, swollen and bleeding. A man named Pete, a helper from Alabama, with shaky hands but steady heart, was wiping blood with a rag wet in moonshine. "Don't move, Jack," Pete whispered. "This ink ties us. If we die in this hole, death needs to know who to send the bill to." The lightning line was rough because bomb rounds walked closer, shaking the ground. The three dots stood for the three men they had lost that week. The memory went as fast as it came. Jack blinked. He was back in the control room. Ensign Kim held his badge, typing his number into her tablet. Dan was still smirking. "You see, Jack, in the Navy, we take pride in being exact, in being great. That scribble on your arm is the opposite. It means mess, no rules. It's bad for the uniform I wear." Jack stayed quiet. He wanted to tell Dan the uniform was just cloth. The man inside mattered. He wanted to tell him mess was the real truth of the world, and the lightning line tried to make order from that mess. But he knew Dan wouldn't get it. Men like Dan thought war was a game of chess on high screens. They didn't know it was a knife. Fight in a dark room with lights out. "Sir," Kim said, looking up from her tablet, "his pass is good. All clear. Level 4 access." Dan looked mad. He grabbed the badge from her hand and looked close at it. "Level 4 for a cleaner. That's higher than yours, Kim. That's a mistake. It says here it was okayed by the base boss himself 3 years ago," Kim said. Dan laughed mean. "Probably a paper mistake. Or maybe you cleaned the right floor for the Admiral once." Dan threw the badge back at Jack. It hit his chest and fell to the floor. "Pick it up," Dan said. Jack looked at the badge on the white tiles. Then he looked at Dan. "I said, pick it up and get your stuff and get out. I'm taking your pass to the control deck until we check safety. I don't like your way, and I don't like that junk on your arm." Jack bent down slow. His knees popped again. He picked up the badge and clipped it back on his red work clothes. "I have a job to finish, sir. The Admiral wants floors done before guests come at 2 p.m. I don't care what the Admiral wants now. I am the officer of the deck, and I tell you to leave." Eyes in the room turned to the other workers. Men and women at desks turned in their chairs watching the show. Most looked uneasy. Bullying an old man was low, even for Dan. But no one spoke up. Rank was a heavy cover that stopped talk except for one person. In the corner, a civilian computer worker named Lisa had been fixing a hard drive. She stopped 5 minutes ago. She had seen Jack every Tuesday for 2 years. He always brought her mint candies. He never talked much, but always asked about her kids. She watched Dan throw the badge. She watched the old man bend down. She felt hot anger in her stomach, not from computers. She pulled her phone from her pocket. She wasn't military. She didn't follow strict rules the same way. She texted a contact saved as Major Tom, safety helper. "Trouble in control room. Dan is bossing Mr. Jack. It's getting bad. Kicking him out over a mark." She hit send, then stood up. "Is this really needed, Commander?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking a bit. "He's just doing his job." Dan turned fast. "Stay in your spot. Tech help. This is military about uniform rules and safety. It's an old man with a mop." "Dan, you're being mean." Dan's face got red. "That's enough. One more word and I'll have you walk out with him." He turned back to Jack, who had not gone to the door. "Are you deaf, old man?" "I said move." Jack sighed. It was a deep sound from the bottom of a well. "I can't leave, sir. The cleaner is heavy. I can't take it downstairs alone, and the work elevator is broken. I need to finish this spot so I can put it in the closet here. I don't care if you carry it on your back. Get out." Dan reached out and grabbed Jack's shoulder, fingers digging into the loose cloth of the work clothes. It was a body push, crossing the line. Jack's move was natural. He didn't hit back. He just moved his weight low, dropping his center and turning his shoulder a tiny bit. Dan's hand slipped off like grabbing a wet pole. Jack stayed still, hands on the cleaner handle. "Do not touch me, kid," Jack said. The "sir" was gone. The voice was no longer rough. It was hard rock. Dan stepped back. His pride hurt more than his hand. He looked at his hand, then at Jack. eyes wide with shock and anger. Did you just, did you just attack a boss officer? Dan yelled, voice to a shout. I stood still, Jack said, calm. You lost balance. That's it. Dan took the radio from his belt, guards to the control deck. I have a bad civilian, maybe drunk. Need out and hold now. The room went dead quiet. Calling guards on an 82-year-old cleaner was crazy. It was job killer, or should have been. But Dan was too mad, riding his shame high. Jack didn't move. He looked at the mark on his arm again. The lightning line, the shape, the dots. Worth it, he thought, if this ends with guards dragging me out. So be it. I've seen worse. Far away in the soft hall of the main building, elevator doors opened. Captain Mike, U.S. Marine, stepped out. He was a big man like a mountain. His chest had ribbons from Fallujah, Marja, and secret spots. Two tough sergeants walked with him and a Navy captain. They went to the control room for the meeting. Mike's phone buzzed. It was a passed message from Major Tom, who knew Mike headed there. Heads up, mess in control room. Officer bugging old worker over weird shape and lightning mark. Mike stopped. The sergeant stopped fast, feeling the boss change. The Navy captain looked back. Problem, Mike. Mike stared at the phone. The words were exact. Shape, lightning line, 3 dots. Not common. Not from a shop wall in San Diego. It was a kill-marked team patch from a deep spy group in Asia Valley 1968, a group that did not exist on paper for 20 years, called Ghost Walkers. 12 men. 4 came home. Mike knew because his dad was radio man for that group. Dad died 6 years ago, but drew that sign on napkins at dinner 1,000 times. Told Mike stories of those men. Special the leader, called the Ghost, who carried Mike's dad 4 miles on broken ankle through enemy lines. Mike looked at Navy captain. We need to get to control room now. Why? What's up? Someone's about to make the worst mistake, Mike said low and scary. Back in control room, air was bad. Dan walked back and forth, waiting for guards. Jack leaned on wall, arms crossed, mark out full. You will regret this, Dan said mad. You think you can disrespect bosses? I respect the rank, Jack said soft, struggling with the man in it. Dan jumped forward, losing control. I'm going to... The back doors flew open hard, shaking glass walls. Attention on deck, yelled a sergeant, loud like a bomb. Everyone jumped straight. Chairs turned, backs stiff. Even Dan froze, hand half to Jack's chest. Captain Mike walked in, boots hitting floor in a beat Jack knew. Navy captain followed, worried. Dan got up fast, saluted, smug look back. Captain Mike. Sir, sorry for noise. Handling safety threat. Bad worker who attacked. Mike did not look at Dan. Walked past. Past screens. Past shocked helpers. Stopped 3 feet from Jack. Room held breath. Dan turned confused. Sir, that's the guy. He is. Quiet, Lieutenant, Navy captain said, stepping up. Mike stared at Jack. Looked at red work clothes. Mop bucket. Face worn by time but strong. Then the arm, shape, lightning, 3 dots. Mike's eyes followed faded ink. Saw scars under, saw past Dan called junk. Jack looked back at Big Marine. Did not know him, but knew the eyes. Eyes of one who knew. Mike raised right hand slow. Stance perfect. Hand to hat brim sharp salute. More respect than Dan ever gave. Held 1 second, 2, 3. Quiet huge. Captain salutes cleaner. Broke all rules. Smashed order. Sir, Mike said, voice thick. Honor to be with you. Jack uncrossed arms slow. Stood tall like 20 years gone. Returned salute, hand flat, fingers straight. Old habit from long ago. At ease, Captain, Jack said. Mike dropped salute, turned to room, looked at sailors and officers. Landed on Dan. Dan looked like swallowed bomb. Know who this is, Lieutenant? Mike asked quiet. Scary. He... Cleaner, sir. Jack. Mike turned to Jack. May I? Pointed arm. Jack nodded. Mike turned arm gentle for room to see. Not gang marks, Lieutenant. Team sign of 3rd Spy Group. Team sight or wind. Deep drop 1968. Mike looked around, all listened. Called ghost walkers. Worked behind enemy weeks, no food. Job find enemy guns killing bases. This mark, shape means pressure. Lightning means hit. 3 dots. Mike stopped. Throat tight. Dots for 3 men from 5 team who did not get out of the valley. Mike to Jack. My dad was helper, James Mike. Your radio man. Jack's eyes wide. Tough face broke. Jimmy, you're Jimmy's boy? Yes, sir. Told me you. The hill. Carried him. Bled on back 4 miles. Told leave him. You said shut up, keep radio dry. Jack looked down, eyes blinked fast. Kept dry. Jack whispered. Called planes. Saved us. Mike to Dan. Dan pale, wanted floor swallow. You asked his past, Mike said louder, voice strong. Navy Cross. 3 wound medals. Dad lived made me. Me here because him. Mike stepped to Dan. You mocked, threatened, tried throw out over skin ink. Sir, I didn't know. Dan shook. Looked Navy Captain help. Captain mad too. Not knowing no excuse for meanness, Lieutenant, Navy Captain said. Judge book by cover you can't read. Mike looked at Cleaner. You told him leave. Yes, sir, Mike to Jack. Mr. Jack, no kicking you out. If willing, honor join meeting. Talk sneaky war in thick land. Your words better than screens. Jack looked Cleaner, then Mike. Must finish floor, Captain. Admiral likes shine. We have people, Navy Captain said. Ensign Kim. Yes, sir. Kim jumped. Finish floor. No, wait. Jumped desk. My honor, sir. Took handle from Jack. Smiled big reel. Thanks service, Mr. Jack. Jack looked hands-free first time hours. Looked Dan shrinking whole hunt. Jack walked to Dan. Room tight, wait hit or yell. Stopped foot away. Spoke soft, only Dan Mike here. Good boots, kid. Keep clean. Mud where work done. Mud men, no pretty posters. Look me. Tapped chest hard. Respect not collar stripes. How treat boot cleaner. Dan down. Yes, sir. Jack to Mike. Look like Jimmy, same chin. Mike smiled real rare. Hope half man he was. Doing okay, Jack said. Mike to door. After you, sir. Jack, Cleaner with jail mark, fixed clothes. Walked past shocked techs, past blinking computers, to exit. Marine captain stepped behind right, respect spot. Past door, mark flash mine lass. Jungle heat, rain smell, needle and ash gunpowder mix. Jimmy hold arm, hold still Harry. Hurts, teeth grit, pain just info. Jimmy finish, shape on skin. Promise bond map, where been left behind. Control room door closed, quiet stayed long. Ensign Kim turned Cleaner. Motor hummed. Cleaned floor hero stood, careful over ghost steps giant. Dan alone center, looked clean uniform. Coffee cup hand, slow to trash dropped cup. Sat station, pulled Jack file, read. Read brave words, Hill 881. Traps, saves, face white ghost. Read cuts, malaria. No leave. Own arm smooth. Saw never real Navy. Wore costume. Jack was Navy. Screen blur, stare, brave words. Hall outside, Jack Mike side. Coffee meat and taste mud? Jack asked. Laughed. Worse. Fuel burn plastic. Smiled. Good like home. Turned corner. 2 fighters, different worlds, same rules. Left quiet behind. Legend quiet hero, strange mark. Stayed room after floor dry. Mark on memory all saw. Ghost walkers, story not done. New listeners, no laugh. Call to action. If hero story moved you, like share honor vets. Sub-veteran valor, more heroes hide plain.